Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel today, and in today's tutorial I'll be sharing with you all a detailed process on how to cut and sew this shift dress you see right here. It has a slit in front, and I was actually inspired by the ones you see at the sides, and the one in the middle is actually the one I recreated. So it also has side pockets, a v neckline, and also has this velvet bias that was attached to the center front, and also I did extra by adding it to the sleeve. So if this sounds like something interested in learning how to do, continue watching, and please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. So here are my sewing materials needed for the making of this gown. So what I'm holding right here is called a velvet bias. So it's actually 1 inch wide, and some people prefer calling it suede bias, but I think the official name for this is velvet bias, and I use 2 yards of that. So for this one, which is my fabric and is an African print, you can see I also have 2 yards, and I'm just going to start off now by spreading this out so that I can fold and start marking out all my measurements. So firstly, I'm going to fold into 2 from one border to the other, as you can see right here. So after making my first fold, I'll go ahead to fold it the second time. So right now I'm having 4 folds, okay? So by the time I cut, I'm going to have the front and back cut out together at the same time, all right? So ensure that you arrange this properly and make sure there are no folds underneath. Make sure that everything is straight. You can actually go ahead to iron if yours is not straight enough, all right? So now I'm going to draw a straight line at the top of my fabric, which is going to be my starting line. So from this other end, I'm going to come down by 1 inch because I'm going to slant this before I start. So this 1 inch, I'm going to slant it into this first line which I drew in this slanting manner, just as I've done right here. Now from the folded edge of my fabric, I'm going to start by marking 1 inch from the top of my fabric all the way to the ends. So I'm here to insert the length of my gown, okay? So I'll just mark it up to the ends and now use my ruler to connect these dots into a straight line. So on that slanted line, I'll be taking my shoulder measurement. So all these measurements I'm taking will be starting from this 1 inch line, okay, and not from the edge of my fabric. So you can see I placed my 7 inches on that 1 inch line, and I marked my shoulder divided into 2 of 7 inches. So from there, I now marked my sleeve length of 9 inches. By the time I fold in with 1 inch, I'll be having 8 inches as my sleeve length. Now from that end of my sleeve length, I came down by 9 inches, which is for my armhole. So I connected from that 1 inch line all the way down to that 9 inches. So after this, I will just proceed to mark my neck width. So the neck width I'm working with right here is 3 inches, which I marked, and for this neck depth, I'm just going to mark 2 inches. So please note that all these lines are starting from this 1 inch, okay? So I've achieved the round neckline right here, as you can see, with my curve rule. So I'll place my tape on that first line, and I'm going to mark my bust point of 11 inches. From that point, I got my half length of 15 inches, and I counted 9 inches and got my hip line, or my hip length, of 24 inches. Now my gown length is 35 inches plus 2 inches for folding. I marked 37 inches. So I'll simply extend all of these points which I've made right here into a straight line. So after that, now I'm simply going to start imputing my body measurements. So on that my bust point, I have my bust circumference divided by 4, which is 9 inches. I added 1 inch for ease and also 1 inch for stitching allowance. So altogether now I added 2 inches. So I'm going to create a curve this way from that point to meet this my armhole in a curvy manner this way. You can actually use your curve rule just at that end to also achieve your curve. All right, so my half length, I divided my waist circumference by 4. I marked what I had right there. I added extra 2 inches right there, 1 inch for ease and 1 inch for stitching allowance. I repeated the same process on my hip line. I divided my hip by 4 and added extra 2 inches. So now I'm going to connect all of these lines, but before I do that, I have to mark my hem circumference. So I measured out what I had on my hip, and I had 12.5 inches. I subtracted just half of an inch from that and marked 12 inches on my full gown length. So please don't forget, I told you earlier that all of these my body measurements are starting from this 1 inch line, okay? So now I'll just start by connecting all of these dots which I have right here to form a basic gown. All right, so just watch how I'm doing this and how I'm placing my ruler while connecting all of these. This is actually how you too should do yours as well. So after this, now I went ahead to reshape that part because it looked a bit weird. So now I'm done drafting, and have in mind that I actually drafted the front and our back dress together. Okay, so I'm going to cut out everything the way I've drafted, and for that shoulder area, while you are cutting, please go up by at least half of an inch for joining. I cut off the neckline and notched that 1 inch area. On my half length, I also notched that point for the fixing of our side pocket. So I've removed one part of this dress right here. So I want to actually create my butt curve and my zipper slant right here. So your half length, you just come out by half of an inch. You go up by 5 inches, come down by 5 inches, 8 inches. I've always done this countless of times on my channel, and if you are yet to actually understand, I'll pin a tutorial to how to go about the butt curve and zipper slope in my comment section, so you can watch it out. Okay, it's actually a detailed process because this particular one was a bit fast. All right, so I'm done with the back part of this our gown, and I brought the other side, which is the front part. So I'm now going to mark my neck depth. So remember that the neck depth I subtracted from the back part was actually 2 inches. So I took that 2 inches up and marked 6 inches. All right, so now from that my neck width, I'm going to make a slant connection to meet these 6 inches in this pointing manner because it's actually a V-shaped neckline. All right, so I'm going to cut that off right now. So having done this, now you can see what I have. I'll go ahead now and separate these two front pieces so that I can have 2 pieces. All right, having separated this, you can see I now have 2 pieces of my front dress right here. So the next thing I'm going to do is actually pipe the neckline area. So I'm actually using the same fabric. I cut out this piece which is 3/4 inch wide. So I'm just going to stitch this way right size and flip it to the other side and stitch it. It's just piping, how to pipe. Okay, so I just piped all the neckline using the same fabric, but you can actually make use of your bias to do this, but I prefer using my fabric. Okay, so after piping all the necklines for the front and for the back dress on the neckline, I placed them right sides facing each other, as you can see right here. I arranged it at that front part, at that top part. So I arranged it properly, making sure that it aligned properly, and I'm going to now stitch. So I'll mark 1 inch. You know that 1 inch we marked, so that's what I'm going to mark, and I'll stitch from the beginning to the very end, or the hem. So when I do this, I'm actually going to fold in this way, or you can use your hemming gun, but I'll still show you how to go about this. All right, you can fold this twice, you can fold in this twice to get rid of the rough edges before you stitch down that 1 inch. All right, but it shouldn't exceed that 1 inch. Okay, so now I've gone ahead now to stitch that down my 1 inch from the neckline all the way to the ends of my dress. So you're going to open this up this way and iron this flat, and now folding these rough edges to get rid of that. Okay, but because I wanted to iron my hemming gum to this, I didn't fold or stitch. So all I'm going to do is place my hemming gum underneath and cover it this way, and now folding that rough edges to be on top of my hemming gum, and I'm just going to iron these flats so you can see what I'm doing. So I've gone ahead to do that, and this is what I had. So at this point I realized that this gown actually had a slit which I didn't leave, so I had to mark my slit. So these 2 inches I marked is for my folding or my hemming. So I marked 2 inches and extra 5 inches. So altogether now the length of my slit from the ends of this my gown is 7 inches. By the time I fold in by 2 inches, I'll be left with 5 inches as the length of my slit. Okay, so let's just take it that way. I don't want to confuse guys at all. So I flip this now to the front part, and I'm just going to get my velvet bias. So you're going to place this velvet bias from the shoulder all the way to your neckline, and make sure that it's very close to the edge of your neckline. So while placing this, you're going to ensure that it is very close or seated very close on top of the center line which you have, which is the joints we have while joining these two pieces of our front dress. Okay, so I zoomed this properly because at that point you might encounter a little bit difficulty by stitching this, but you just have to be very careful and you're going to get it perfectly, trust me. Okay, so I went ahead to do this for the both sides to the end, and this is what I have. You can see my slits and everything is still in place and intact. So I'm going to get the back of my gown, and I'm going to make sure that the two necklines align, and also the shoulder area, of course, because I'm going to stitch the two shoulders at this point. All right, so I also did the same for the other side. Make sure you arrange everything properly on the neckline and make sure they align very well, just as mine have aligned right here. And after joining the shoulder, you also hem your sleeve. So I did just that, and on the sleeve I just decided to also run this bias, velvet bias on it, just for extra beauty, okay, which is not really too compulsory. So now for the pocket, I folded this fabric into two, and I'll fold it again, making it 4 pieces. So normally I love the length of my pocket to be 8 inches, but this was 7 inches, so I just had to use that. So inwardly I marked 8 inches. So I'm just going to curve this out this way. So after cutting it out this way, I'm just going to use my scissors now and now cut this out. So by the time I separate this, I'm going to have 4 pieces of this pocket, as you can see right here. So I'm going to start fixing it to my dress. So on the right side, I'll get the right side of my pocket and get the right side of my fabric, and from that notch part, which is my half length, I'm going to pin my pocket, as you can see. So if you do this, you stitch this down. So do the same thing for the back part of your gown as well, on that straight part of your pocket, not on the curved part. Okay, so you pin it like this from that notched part, which is your half length, because that is where our pocket normally starts from, right? So you pin this way, and you're going to stitch exactly like that. So by the time you pin, you are going to arrange it properly this way, because by the time you stitch that your pocket to your dress, this is what it's going to look like. But there's no need for any alarm, because I'll still take you guys through how I did this on my sewing machine. All right, so I'm just trying to show you how you have to arrange all of this properly, so that when I move over to my sewing machine while I'm doing this, you don't get confused at all. Okay, so I'm just illustrating how you go about the stitching. All right, so right here now on my sewing machine, I went ahead to repeat the same process. I placed my pocket right side facing my front dress first, then from that notched part, I'm going to stitch and stop exactly where this my pocket stopped. That is for the length, as you can see right here. All right, so this is for one part. I'll go ahead and repeat the same thing for the back part. Okay, so I stitch using 1/2 inch. All right, so after this now, you can see what I have. So I'll now bring my gown together on the shoulder area, and it's aligned on the sleeve part and on the side. So go ahead and arrange this properly. As you can see, I'm pinning mine. So also arrange the pocket part properly, as I can see I'm doing right here. So you can see, I believe it's very clear and there is no need for any confusion, right? So I ended up stitching my dress using just 1/2 inch. I didn't let her use 1 inch, which was the stitching allowance I gave, because I wanted the dress to be like very free on me. Okay, so you can see I'm going to stitch using 1/2 inch, and when I get to that point, I'll just go 1/2 inch below from the joints on my pockets, and I'll turn this over this way, and I'm going to stitch round using 1/2 inch. So I hope it's not confusing at all, right? So when I get there to my fabric, I'll double stitch. So you just watch carefully what I'm doing. So you can see I double stitch, and I continue stitching the way down using the same 1/2 inch. So this is actually what you should do. So when I was done stitching for this my pocket, I also went ahead to hem or fold the hem of my gown please, so that you don't get you all confused. So I folded in 2 inches, which was the hemming allowance I left for this. Then from that 2 inches, I folded in about half of an inch. So I want to get rid of these rough edges, right? So just like that, I will do the same for all the sides, and I will bring this to my table for you all to see what I've done so far. So after stitching, here's what I have. So my pockets are really sitting pretty and nice, and the next I'm going to do is to fix my zipper. So I'll flip this to the back part, and I'm going to mark 1 inch, which was the zip allowance I gave for this. And you can raise your zipper up if you don't want it to be so long on your gown, and you now stitch up everything. And that is all for the sewing of this gown. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. I will see you all in my next one. Do have a very blessed day ahead of you. Bye.